Hey, hello. So I'm here with Yeal Clarke, who's joining me from Melbourne for another episode of Awesome Women. Yael, good morning or good evening in
Good
Melbourne.
evening.
How are you?
Yeah, well, I'm good. End of a long day. I worked today, and it's dark here, so the lighting's not great in here. Sorry, but yeah, we're going into winter as you're going into summer.
I know. It's great. Hopefully we get a summer. It's like winter here at the moment. It's freezing.
Oh, okay.
Like a really bad start to our summer. But enough about the weather because we know how much we love talking about.
Melburnians, people from Melbourne, all we do is talk about the weather because it changes all the time here. So it's the big small talk conversation here for anyone. It's a great script to have up your sleeve.
Yeah, we're the same in Ireland. We're always like surprised when we see the rain, even though we're like, it rains most of the time. So I was like, oh, it's raining today. I'm so shocked. So yeah, tell us a little bit about you. We've spoken a few times now, So tell us a little bit about your story when you found out you were autistic. Maybe.
Well, let me start by saying that I met you with my two hats on, and it was for professional development. But of course, the professional is personal, and the personal is professional when you're a psychologist. So that yes, if I'm learning anything about autistic people, obviously I'm learning about myself too. Absolutely. And also, obviously, I'm critiquing it too, because I'm going, does that ring true for me? So yeah, I had two hats on, and that's usually our conversations have two hats, which is nice. Okay, so yes, what do I start with? I'm a psychologist, and I'm an educational developmental psychologist. I've been trained for about 20 years. Before that, I was a teacher, so I've always worked with kids. Help me out.
Totally fine. So tell us, because you said to me before, kind of like when you were training, you learned like, this is autism, this is what autism is.
Right. So it's 20 years ago, and so much has changed since then, thank goodness. Yeah. But I went into psychology, as I said, having been a teacher. And the reason why I went from teaching into psychology was because I love children, and I would spend all lesson talking and listening and basically counselling. But I didn't have qualifications for that. And I thought, well, that's not quite right. I'm overstepping my competencies a little bit here. So I'll go and get qualified. And I just chose the university that was closest because I was a single mother at the time of two little children. And I thought, well, that one's, a 10-minute drive. I'll go there. And the course was educational developmental, which really is not what, in hindsight, I should have done.
Hindsight's great.
What I know, whatever, I did it. So that's my master's degree, and it was in, it's a lot of assessment. It's assessment, and it bored me to tears. I wasn't interested in assessment. I was interested in getting in the nitty-gritty, messy lives of people and helping. Yeah, and loving these children, and yeah. Anyway, so I actually left my training very much behind. I didn't continue. I mean, I did, but all the learning I did was really after university. I just took every professional development course and read everything and to the areas I was interested in. So doing the master's for me was just a piece of paper. You get the qualification, you're a psychologist, go learn what you want to learn. And what we were taught was that autism is this terrible, terrible developmental disorder that you will deliver the pronouncement with very somber tones and apologies to the poor parents. We will support you well, and there are these and these agencies you must go to, and these and these therapies you must do. And basically what you must do is train your child. So honestly, the whole thing was about token economies, reward and punishment, and visual charts and predictability. So a few little useful things in there, but it bored me to tears because there was no humanity to it.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. There is no humanity to a lot of the approaches to us. Yes,
right. It was so dry and so formulaic and so generic. Just apply this to every child. This is what we do to train them to be proper children. Yeah, I wasn't interested. So off I went, and I went down the path of attachment theory. So attachment theory and more down the clinical side. So I've ended up specializing in OCD. And OCD is a very big overlap. A lot of autistic people have OCD. Mm-hmm. Now, forget the autistic bit for a bit because I didn't know. I wasn't working with it. But funnily enough, over the years, I had lots and lots of autistic clients and we got on really well. Gee, I wonder why. We just, I don't know, we clicked.
Yeah.
We clicked. I mean, cringe. Some of the things I did with some of them, I cringe now going, oh my gosh, the social skills checklists and social thinking and these things. And, you know, some of these things were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But whenever I wasn't actually doing a session structure with them and we were just chatting or playing or drawing, it was fun. And the kids liked coming and it was great. I don't know why. I could always get the kids and explain them to their parents. I had no inkling that there was a reason for me understanding them. It never crossed my mind in my life that autistic did not mean anything personal to me at all.
Yeah.
Until my now 14-year-old, she was about 9 when I started going, something's going on here and I don't know what it is. And a friend of mine's daughter was at the time assessed and turned autistic. And I kept listening and I kept going, it's not what I was taught in uni. That is really different, but sounds like my daughter. And it sounds like that's what autism actually is. So I had to unlearn everything I thought that I had learned at university.
Yeah.
And I went to a psychologist who said, nah, no way, she's not autistic. So an older trained psychologist. And teachers also, the teachers thought I was crazy. The teachers were like, oh, you're such a psychologist, always looking for something diagnosable in your kids. You know, she's just got this happening and she's just got that happening and she's just experiencing this and we just noticed that. And couldn't she just learn to this, that and the other? I'm like, hello. No, didn't get anywhere with it. That was grade 4, 5, 6. Year 7 in Australia. So we go, not all, there are some schools that are kindergarten right through to year 12, but the school she was at, you go there for primary school till grade 6. And then year 7, you go to a big high school. And there were 217 kids in her year level. New school, did not know anyone.
That's scary.
And within the first month, she was in the cool kids group. She was just, she's got the look and what I now know, masks. Like she just fitted right on in.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, they'd dropped her.
Yes.
Completely dropped her.
A familiar story. Yeah.
Oh my God, broke my heart. Broke my heart. I'd see all these things on Instagram that leaving her out and even screenshots of nasty things they were saying about her and messing with her mind, like just messing with her because they knew she didn't really understand. And that's what, and a teacher came up to me and a teacher said, I think you need to get your daughter assessed. And I burst into tears of validation. I said, thank you so much. I've been saying that for years and nobody would listen to me. And I'm so glad at last, you know. So I went on a waiting list to what I thought and still think is one of the best places around here for assessing subtle, nuanced presentations of autism. And that waiting list was very long. So she wasn't actually diagnosed until middle of lockdown last year.
Okay.
Early lockdown. That's right. It was really early lockdown, but there was nowhere to go with it because she wasn't at school and there was no one to tell, hey, we've got the answers. Yeah. So it was just this real anticlimax.
Yeah, to years.
We agreed to the diagnosis because she got a cake.
Oh.
We had a celebration cake that night. As I was doing all the questionnaires for her, I'm going, oh my God, that's me. That's me. That's me. And my husband's saying, you do that too. You're like that too. I'm like, interesting. And being what I know is classically autistic, and particularly being, you know, a higher educated person who's used to journal articles and medical articles, etc., I dove deep. I went into everything, and boy, my psychologist superpower is just, yeah, I knew it all by the end of 2 months just of reading everything and every Facebook group, every forum, everything. I was there. So I got, before I got assessed. Okay, so I got very political and I was like, this is terrible. As a psychologist, I'm ashamed to come out and say I'm autistic. It's going to be bad for my career, but that's wrong. Why should I be? I'm very militant that way. You know, why should I be? It's a good thing. I bring my strengths to my work. I've been a psychologist for 20 years now and I've been good till now. Why would I suddenly be bad because I have a diagnosis?
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm self-employed, so my clients are coming to me, not an agency, they're coming to me, and I have a very full practice. So why did I suddenly doubt myself? But anyway, so I got all political and went, damn it, I'm starting a Facebook group for autistic psychologists.
Brilliant.
And I did. And I have 70 people in there, 70 autistic mental health professionals, but I didn't even have a diagnosis yet.
I know. But
I wasn't even confident in my self-diagnosis.
yeah, it's like,
That's the thing. It doesn't even matter whether I had a diagnosis or not. I wasn't even confident in my self-identification. I was still going, am I? Aren't I? I don't know. Ah! And they just said, enough already. Would you get an assessment? So finally, I got an assessment and I went into the group and said, hi, I'm allowed to be in my own group now. It's official.
but you know, we spend so long basing our opinions of ourselves on other people's opinions of us. It's you know, and there it is. That's just a prime example.
Every psychologist I'd ever seen was, oh, your social anxiety is so intense. You know, you've really got to get through that, and you're scaring people away. That's why you're alone. You're scaring people away with your anxiety. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm the life of every party. I joke. I'm a clown. That's my script. That's what I do to feel comfortable. Right? I mean, I'll go home afterwards and what did I just do? But at the party I'm not really a party person. That's the wrong word. At the dinner or, you know, whatever, cafe or wherever we are, I'm the talkative one. So why was I saying that? I don't remember. I also got a diagnosis of ADHD at the same time, so that should not surprise you.
Well, you were saying that because I was saying about how people, how we kind of base our, that self-doubt, you know what I mean? That's other people to kind of decide who we are. So, you know, why would
very much so. So, you know, it was, oh, that's right. I'm saying no, nobody would pick up my anxiety when I'm out like that because I am so masked and I am so funny. I am funny.
You are funny.
Usually laughing at myself, but still, it's a form of humor. So I don't think people pick up my anxiety like that. I don't think that particular psychologist has said it was right, but it stuck. What she said, it really, really stuck with me.
Yeah.
I have a fairly significant, what am I going to call it? Complicated history of loss and difficult experiences. So that was also very easy to attribute any difficulties I had to that. Yeah. Oh, it's because you went through this and you went through that. And that's why this, that's why that. Easy. And it fitted. But it doesn't explain why. And actually, this is a nugget that I really would love to offer. It doesn't explain why, as I grew older and happier in life, because I'm in a happy marriage and I love my job and I've got my children, it doesn't explain why, as I grew happier and more healed from my background, actually my autistic behaviors became much more pronounced. If they were trauma-based,
yes,
they would have gone because I was healing.
Yeah.
The fact that now I'm much more free to be me and whatever, use my styles of thinking, my styles of talking, it's because I'm happier.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a really interesting nugget. And worth holding on to, I think, when I meet older women. I mean, I'm 52 or 53 next month. So, and I got my diagnosis last year. Now that's late diagnosis. That's late identification. And it's exciting. It's beautiful because all the things that I was so, what's the word? They weren't integrated. This bit of me, that bit of me, this part of my history. Now it's come together so nicely.
Yes. Oh, it's like feeling whole, isn't it? It's lovely. Yeah.
Very much. Yeah. And even just yesterday, a penny dropped for me for something. I've had lots of weird physical syndromes and symptoms and things throughout my life. And the doctor would go, that's it. I declare you have this. And 6 months later, it would be like, no, I don't think I do. Yeah. Another year later, 2 years later, another doctor would declare you have oh my gosh, read everything about it, identify with it, join all the chat groups. Nah, that's not me. I don't have that. you know, endocrinological syndromes and all sorts of things like that, physical, you know, joints and skin tissue. Okay, so joints, skin tissue.
Are you going to say yes?
EDS, hello. Mast cell activation syndrome. I didn't know anything about it. I have this, okay, first of all, I can't drink alcohol, never have been able to. 1 year I made it my New Year's resolution to learn how to drink alcohol, and I went and spent a couple of $100s on alcohol of every different kind. And every day I posted on Facebook to my friends, I'm trying this one today, I'm trying this one today. I couldn't handle any of them, it didn't matter what. Sulfites, no sulfites, tannins, no tannins, you know, whatever, anything.
Yeah.
I can't handle alcohol. I can't handle most medications. I don't know what's going to happen when I'm old and need morphine, because I can't take any of the opioids and codeines and enes.
Yeah.
I have sensitivities, but not allergies. I have sensitivities to stone fruit, sulfites, tomatoes, walnuts and hazelnuts, but not anaphylactic, but not good. Like I won't eat them because I don't breathe well.
Yeah.
All these weird little things all over the place. And the weirdest one I have has been for the past 6 years. And of course, every year I've gotten a referral to go and see a dermatologist. And every year I haven't gone and seen a dermatologist. Is that if I clap my hands or a high five, or you smack me playfully, I will go red for half an hour and sting, burn. It's awful. It's awful. And my reading has now told me that that is part of mast cell activation syndrome. And it's common in autistics.
And is mast cell, is that similar to EDS? Does it come under
I think,
it sounds to me like they're very similar. Or there's
I feel like it's part of it, but I don't know. I haven't read enough yet. Like this is literally the past 2 days.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah. Okay.
Like last night I sat my husband down and drew a flowchart. You know how I don't let you give me a smack? This is why, it's got a real reason.
But I mean, you see, it's important to have these discussions, because like things like EDS, and I think, to be honest, like there's just a whole lot of stuff that comes under EDS, and there's not enough research on it, and we're just like this now, people are kind of talking about it more, and like there's something like we're 7 times more likely to have EDS than the normal population, than the non-autistic population, the general population. So yeah, I mean, it is a big thing for a lot of people, you know.
Well, first of all, I went to him. See, I really am autistic. See,
things like anesthetics. So, like, would anesthetics work for you? Because I know some women who
terrible with anesthetics. After any operation, I will vomit for days. I'm never allowed to go home on time. It's awful. And I've always, and you know, you and I have had this conversation before, not in terms of EDS and anesthetics and anything like that, but we've talked about how sensitive the autistic system is.
Yeah.
How the neurobiology is just sensitized and, you know, either going to overreact or underreact. And it really makes sense to me that all these sensitivities that I have to alcohol, to medications, to touch, you know, it's interesting because that's a really nuanced level now of, if I went to the psychologist back in the old days and she asked me about sensory sensitivities, I'm terrible, noise a little bit, but no, I'm okay with the bright lights on and the flashing lights, and I go to bands and I hear, you know, but here's a whole other level for that question. Oh, I really have sensory sensitivities. They're just not the 5 senses that I would have thought of.
Yeah. But it's the crossover between like medical conditions, and you see, if we call everything autism, and that's the thing, you know, it's like people are being missed out on because they literally have a medical condition, you know, or you could have gone to a psychologist who tell you half this stuff is in your head. Sure, not.
Well, it's very real.
Yeah,
it's very real. But I just think that, you know, there's something quite intense and sensitive about our systems.
Oh yeah. That too, yeah.
And that's going to manifest different for different people.
Yeah.
I mean, my grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, and I have a cousin with rheumatoid arthritis. So it's obviously those sorts of autoimmune conditions are in the family. So it's interesting.
It is interesting.
I don't know. Like, again, for me, it's just continuing to find out more about myself at this ripe old age. continuing to look back historically and go, that's what that was. And that's, oh, you know, putting it all
Isn't
together.
it so lovely when it's like, oh, that's why. Oh, that's why. And it keeps coming. And like like I think, and even now I'm 7 years on, I'll still get the odd aha moment. Oh, that's and I think stuff sticks in our heads as well, like, because you know, the unsolved stuff. Well, why? Because that's for me. It's like, although kind of there was like, I call it like the breadcrumb trail. There was like these little clues in my mind that I'd left for myself all the way through my life. So when I got to the stage where I was actually like, oh, this is, and you know, reading about autistic women, not like 4-year-old boys. And then it was like, oh, yes, I fit a lot of this stuff. Now, half of it is mental health, but you know, in it is actually autistic experiences. And I think that's what I identified with as well. You know,
as a child, one of my early memories is when I was in grade 3 or something. I wasn't allowed to swim in the swimming class because the teacher said I had fleas, and I didn't. Was skin picking. Oh. Okay, and that was my repetitive behaviour. I would pick. You don't put those things together.
I'm sorry.
I had fleas. Embarrassment. But yes.
You shared this to everybody that you had fleas.
I don't remember that bit.
I hope not.
I don't know. But you know, and I remember when I was little, like really little, I chewed my nails so down to the bottom that I had to get penicillin injections in them because they're completely infected. And I loved pressing where the infection was, and that, do you know that pain, that sort of burning pain feeling? I loved it. And it's just funny, all those things parents don't notice as being a pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, she does this and she does that and this happened. Because I called my mother and I said to her at one point during the assessment, I said, did I have any sensory sensitivities as a child or any repetitive behaviours? Oh, no, darling, nothing. And then I reminded her of the thumb and she went, oh, you do remember things better than me.
But you see, as well, a lot of the stuff we do, like stuff I did when I was growing up, was just Evaleen stuff, you know, blue walls and blue colours used to give me headaches and fluorescent lights, and that was just an Evaleen thing, and I didn't eat, you know, most things, and that's just that was just an Evaleen thing. It was just, and I mean, there's a form of acceptance in that as well, you know what I mean? My mom wasn't looking for a kind of thinking, oh, there's something wrong with her because she won't do that, and even as an adult. It was before I found out I was autistic. Maybe about 2. So again, obviously this thinking was going on, but it was probably a few years before that, and I was like, I'm going to go to a psychologist about, because I only eat beige food basically still, right? You know, I've developed a little bit since I was a kid, you know, but I don't eat vegetables. I don't. My diet is limited, which is no problem at all for me. It's no problem when I go on holidays. It's no problem when I'm at home. It was actually going to people's houses, and I just found people don't accommodate you when they just think you're being like odd or fussy, or, you know, it's like, if you're a vegetarian, people will not, you know, they'll go, well, you're a vegetarian, so I'll respect your choice and I'll cook you something else. If you're someone who says, I can't eat this stuff, they just kind of go, oh, she eats that stuff, and they expect you to eat it, or they don't, you know what I mean? And there's just this kind of like, as if there's a choice there for you, and it's like, well, no, there's not. But anyway, I just kind of said, maybe there's something I can do about this. Maybe I can, you know. So I went to a psychologist, and you know, we kind of talked about eating habits and blah blah blah. And you know, she was kind of like, oh, I think you might have missed out on a weaning stage, and kind of like was like, try roast. Like I was like, I eat roast potatoes. I don't like mashed potatoes because the textures. And she was like, well, try roast parsnips. And I was kind of going, like, I was sitting there going, yeah, this is a great idea. I'm just going, I'm not going back here, but but like. And
I am cringing.
At the time, but you know, at the time, as well, she, you know, she was like, and are you happy? Kind of, you know, she very kind of quickly brushed over my life. And kind of go, and I was like, yeah, I'm going out with somebody, and yeah, he's lovely. And I was like, I was in an abusive relationship, right? Had she asked me, delved any way deeper, asked another few questions, it would have been like, whoa, yes, I actually. So, you know, but again, this mask is on. But yeah, it's like, and this is like, well, probably what, 9 years ago, maybe, whatever, like, surely if someone is showing sensory sensitivity, you know, or sensitivities to food and to things, it's like that should be, you might be sensitive, you might be autistic, but this was like, you might have missed out on a weaning stage, and here's what and it was but again, it was focusing on the behavior. It was looking at my eating and not looking at, you know, the reasons behind it and stuff like that properly.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I just was like, thanks very much. But my mom actually, because I told her, I was like, I'm going to go to a psychologist and see, and she was like, don't mind these people, they're just telling you there's something wrong with you. She was right. And she wrote out a page of food. She was like, actually, this is all the stuff you eat. Now, I wasn't living at home for the past, like, probably 15 years, but she was like,
but she knew.
She was like, actually, here's a sheet now of all the stuff that you do eat. And you're not that limited. You know, it was just like, actually, you know, even though she was
nice.
It was lovely. Yeah. But I get, you see, and that's it, because I suppose her attitude would have been like, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with being autistic, you know. So it's
but I mean, my experience was I did grow up being called rude and a drama queen and stubborn, and you always had to be right, and you always have to,
I got that stuff too.
And you always have to convince everybody that you know best, and now I just see that I was just so fused is the word I want to use. It's a word we use in acceptance and commitment therapy. So fused to my ideas and fused. It was so important to me. It mattered so much that the person understood, because it was my interest.
Yeah.
So when I took my daughter to a pediatrician fairly recently, the pediatrician used an assessment scale, which is extremely outdated. And I let her know that. And I was explaining it to her, and I was explaining to her that, you know, this is the first edition. There's actually a third edition now, and the author themselves says that you should be only using that edition, no longer this edition. The reason why it's free on the internet is because it's outdated. I mean, really, if you're going to use something that's really well researched and standardized, it's probably going to cost. And yes, it costs. She took high offense. And she said to me, well, if you don't want to work with me, you don't have to work with me. And I was like, no, I just thought you'd want to know.
Yeah, but you see, this is something that comes up in so many areas. It's like whether you're talking about ABA or whether you're talking about like kids who've been misdiagnosed with, you know, intellectual disability or something, and they actually have motor disorder or whatever. It's like, you would think people would just like to know. They don't, because they make it personal. They make something that's not about them. And I don't think we do that. And I think that's hard for us to actually.
I would gobble up any new knowledge that made my work better.
Yes, because it's not about us. Do you know what I mean?
Send me the link. I want to read more.
Yeah, it's about us being better, but it's not. You know, if I thought what I was doing was affecting somebody negatively, I'd be like, oh, okay, I need to stop. I need to do something else. I need to whatever, and put my hands up. But people don't. It's like it's about them. It
didn't cross my mind that she thought I was saying something of I don't have faith in you, or I'm whatever.
No,
I wasn't. I don't know. But the funny thing was, when we went out, my daughter said to me, "Mummy, you were so rude." And I thought, okay, my autistic daughter's telling me that. Yeah. Her special interest, her spin, is Taylor Swift. I said to her, Taylor Swift.
Oh.
Nothing she doesn't know about Taylor Swift.
Brilliant.
And I said to her, and if somebody told you some incorrect information about Taylor Swift and told you that she didn't deserve to win the Grammy or the whatever, what would you do? She goes, of course I'd tell them they're wrong. Of course I would have to show them all the same, my darling. Yeah. I wasn't being rude. I was being the way you are.
You see, and I think people don't understand that was your motive. Obviously what happened there was a miscommunication. She just thought you were trying to undermine her, whereas actually your motivation was to kind of make sure that, you know, what she was knew, and that, you know, she was doing the best she could, because surely that's what everybody would want to do. And I find that sometimes that people kind of they don't understand our motivations, or they think they all kind of automatically assume that there is something negative involved, and that comes into kind of that power play and stuff that we do.
No,
We're not
no
generally
power play.
saying that's it. We're not generally doing something to bring someone down in the pecking order or anything like that. It is about sharing information, and that's just what we're doing.
If I'm honest, I don't actually think I stopped to think how she'd receive it and what she might think or feel. I think I was just like, here's something that's really important information. I need to share it.
Yeah.
And this brings me to another topic, which I've written a blog post about, but not had the guts to share yet. And that is psychologists, my colleagues, are the most, oh, I've got to be careful what I say. They don't seem to remember that autistic colleagues are autistic. So, you know, yes, I might go on about the same topic. And yes, I might just answer your question with the information and not all the fluffiness around it. You know, with the children that you work with, that's how they will be, and you accept it because you're learning to respect their culture, their approach, their style. But you're expecting something different from all of us adults. You're forgetting that we're autistic too. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be careful with how I say it because I wrote something that I'm going to share eventually with other professionals, just this idea of, I'll give you an example. So another psychologist was saying, oh, there's a colleague I work with who she never smiles, she doesn't sit with us in the lunchroom, and we don't know anything about her private life, and she doesn't chat with us, and it makes us feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah. How much of an effort?
Someone in the group said, well, maybe she's autistic, which first of all is one hell of a stereotype, because I'd be in there talking your ears off and you'd be wanting me to leave because you know too much about me. But second of all, maybe she's autistic. So the other psychologist said, oh, well, in that case, you should tell us and we'd accept it.
No, but you see, this is the thing. You should just accept the way somebody is anyway and stop judging them. You don't need to be going around telling people, I'm autistic, I have ADHD, I have social anxiety. It's like, well, stop taking stuff personally. If someone wants to sit on their own, and if someone doesn't want to share their personal life with you, that's their choice. You need to accept that person.
And they don't owe you an explanation.
No.
They don't owe you their diagnosis. And you shouldn't need to have a diagnosis to be kind to someone.
That's non-acceptance then. You see, this is
it infuriated me.
Yeah, acceptance is seeing people as equal and just accepting whatever that way that person is on that day. It's not about questioning them. It's not about expecting them to fit into your needs. It's just going, well, that's the way that person is.
Yep.
You see, I think as autistics, that's kind of how we do tend to have a very diverse community, a very welcoming community, just a whole range of, different people. And we're like, well, that's that person. We don't take it personally if we're sitting around the table having a chat and, somebody decides, oh, I need a people break. I've had enough of you. I need to go. And they just get up and leave. Sometimes people say nothing, and sometimes because it has happened. And I'm like, oh, that person left. And I'm like, no, that's nothing to do with me. That is that person fulfilling their needs and they need to leave right now. But there is that idea that if someone gets up to leave, they're rude. But if that's like someone taking a drink of water because they're thirsty and someone else thinks it's with them.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, one of my biggest goals with my autistic teenage clients is to identify your needs and be able to advocate for them. To be able to listen to your signals, your body signals, your stress signals, your whatever's coming in at you of what you need right now. Do you need a drink? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need your headphones? Do you need a break? Do you need, trying to identify these.
Yeah.
But I would be thrilled if, one of the young people, what did she do? Oh, I've gone blank on what she did, but she asked the teacher for something. I can't remember what it was now. And I remember just going, yes, brilliant. I'm so glad, they asked. So that's fantastic.
But should we spend most of our lives not asking and not getting our needs met and being afraid?
Why would you? And you're just going to get spoken over and told, well, that's not what you really need or what you really think, or suck it up.
Yeah.
Jenny, Joey doesn't need that. Why do you? All the other kids can do it. Why can't you? I think that's a really hard one. There's something I was going to say a minute ago when we were talking. It doesn't matter, it's gone. I'll come back if it's important.
You see that, and people need comparisons because, you wouldn't say to a wheelchair user, "Well, everyone else can do it." So, but it's like but if someone has genuine challenges with like executive function or social anxiety, it's the same thing as saying, well, everyone else can do it. It's not acknowledging that person has a genuine difficulty with
I
this.
think I told you that one another day last time we were chatting. My husband said to me, oh, that's right, I was doing, he goes, got your shit at prioritizing. And I went, you reckon? I mean, hello, ADHD much? And I said to him, it's like saying to the colorblind person, just look harder and you'll see that red. Like, no, I won't. So sorry, love, but yeah, I'll try. But yeah. I guess one thing I'm sort of meta reflecting on somewhere in the back of my mind now as we're talking is that the whole time I'm talking, I have two hats on. It's always, I'm telling you my story as myself and a parent, but I'm also the whole time thinking about my work and my clients and the work that I do and how I use myself in it. And when I don't, because I haven't told every client, a bit late now, but there's still a lot of stigma in Australia. There really is.
Everywhere.
The kids love it. The kids are like one 14-year-old just said to me, takes one to know one. Like she was thrilled.
How amazing is that for like an autistic kid to be going into, I'm going to my psychologist now. She's autistic too. It's really cool. Like,
and I've got quite a few parents who are thrilled. They're like, oh, you'll get him, you'll understand him, especially if they're neurotypical. But I will admit that I haven't had the confidence with everyone to say, because you don't always know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there is stigma. There is stigma. There
is stigma still. There definitely is. Yeah.
You mentioned having a group of autistic psychologists. Like, what's it like kind of for people to disclose? A lot of professionals don't.
There are quite a few people in the group who are there under a pseudonym, a Facebook username.
Yeah.
I had to make the rule that they had to tell me their actual name and their licensing number, because I have to make sure that it's a safe space. I can't have.
Yeah. And like, obviously I don't want anyone's private information or anything like that, but like, even in say, do they like, have you told your colleagues? You have told some of your colleagues, have you? And kind of like, yeah.
I'm pretty open about it in all the psychology forums now. I mean, I work by myself, which is an autistic dream.
Yeah.
Actually, that's something that's what I wanted to say before. I knew it would come back and it was important. I am a very, very lucky person, and I shall say that without crying. But I do usually cry when I say it, because I really am. I'm very blessed. I get to work in something that I'm so deeply passionate about, that is also benefits me. Like, I'm forever learning, I'm forever growing, and I find it so. Okay, so something I really believe about being autistic is I think we're wired for connection. I think we're about connectivity. And we might not connect in the same way neurotypical thinks of connection, but we're always connected. I can connect with anybody on the street.
Yep.
Either the breed of their dog, or where they were waiting for a tram stop, or whatever it is. There's something to talk about that we can connect on. My husband's like, you pick up the weirdest people. Like,
well, you see, if you think of the sense, because people have sensory over here and they think it's a bad thing that we can't process our environment correctly or whatever, and then you have all this, it's actually, well, no, if you actually say we're sensitive, right? So then of course we're going to be sensitive to other people. We're going to be sensitive to their feelings. We're going to connect with them on a very deep level. And that's why we don't do chit chat. That's why we don't play all these power play games. We're not into the social hierarchy, because none of that stuff.
No, we're there to connect.
I mean, that's what. So we need, like, that's why, this whole SPG and all this stuff, it's again, it's a misinterpretation, I think, of what's going on for us. It's how we're connected with the world, and we are here to connect, and we are here to collaborate. Like, the way I see differences in autistic culture and non-autistic culture is autistic people are here to collaborate. So we see people as people we can work with, people we can, like you just said, I'm forever learning, I'm forever growing. And I think that's actually what it is for us. We feel that like a physical growth nearly when we learn something. It's like a very physical, you know what I mean? And then and we love to share our knowledge with other people, because that's what it's like for us. And autistics get that, but a non-autistic person who just thinks we're what is it?
Yes. Yes.
Just trying to show off how much stuff they know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not what we're doing. We're actually sharing, because learning is such an important part of who we are and how we operate. You know, and
100%.
And I think then, because non-autistic people are more involved in this social hierarchy, so that's what the world is built on, you know what I mean? But that starts early on, and that's part of our conversation, and that's what they're doing in conversation. Even conversation itself can be a power play. Whereas it's not that for us. It's not that for us. It's not about like who's saying more.
But
so,
having said that, it can be seen as that, I think, because what happens, and I know this was a problem for me in my neurotypical world all my life, is, and I'll use neurotypical lens here, you don't respect authority, you don't respect status and rank.
Yeah, because it's not about respecting it. It's nonsense.
Well, the flip side of that is everybody's equal, and I will connect with anybody, and I'll give anybody a fair go. And
respect, you know, what are you supposed to be? This ranking stuff, it's nonsense. It's just, you see, and this is what people don't like, I think, because autistics are like, this is just so silly, guys. Why are you doing this? Why is this a competition? You know, because we're collaborators, we're not competitors. They're all in this competition to kind of get through life, and we're like, because that's my vision for life, even as a kid, was just like holding hands with everybody. I thought life was something that we all had to get through together. That's how I see life, you know. And then it's horrible to kind of realize that actually not everybody is like this. Some people want to pull you back, some people want to trample on you, some people want to distract you over here so they can get ahead of you. And it's like, what? And I'm just going, come on, everyone, let's just get through this life together. Let's help each other. Let's learn. And that's my approach. That's how I see, that's what living is to me. And then you're thrown into this world where literally people are trampling on you.
And you get burnt.
And you're told you're rude. and you're, and you lack empathy.
Yeah. Like, but I think that's also why I get on so well with my teenage clients, because whether I'm just immature, I don't know, maybe, but you know, the age difference, we connect. We connect. I mean, yes, I know I'm an older woman. Of course I know I am, but you know, I'll tell them it's time for you to yeet yourself out of here. You know, I'm in with their language and their whatever. I connect very well and I love it. I enjoy it. I think it's fun. And I'm very, very, very lucky to have such a profession. But the other thing about the profession, so, okay, yes, becoming a psychologist in the first place is I need to understand humans. I really do. I need to make sense of this stuff. And I need to understand myself. And I need to learn these formula. I thought I was going to learn formulae. I was going to learn about people.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also partly because deeply empathic and really wanted to help children and, you know, connect. I had this fantasy of what it was going to be like. It's not always. But then as I actually became a psychologist, like past the learning and into the doing, it's amazing for an autistic, or for me as an autistic, because the conversation is always genuine, is always authentic. You're not there to bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, small talk. Okay, maybe as you walk up the hallway into the room. Oh, did you have an okay time getting here? How was the traffic? You're in the room, you close the door, right? How are you really? Yeah. You know, it's real and it's authentic and it's vulnerable. And the other thing is it has beautiful boundaries. There are rules to that professional relationship. I know where I stand. I know where that person stands. Yeah. We've got really intense personal connection, but safe professional boundaries. Yeah. I can't think of anything more delicious as an autistic.
Yeah.
You know, I'm safe, I'm held, it's predictable, but it's also rich and juicy and messy and relationshipy.
But that's it. That's what we feel. Like, it's emotional. You know, we are emotional. I mean, the way I say it sometimes is that, like, we are our emotions. It's like they're not separate from us. It's like literally. So it's just, you know, this kind of way of bouncing around the world. And when you meet other autistics, and you have that deep connection, and you get to know someone, or with, you know, people who aren't autistic but are willing to connect on that level. It's so beautiful and so fresh, and there's none of this stuff in the way that doesn't really matter.
But of course, as a psychologist, I was trained, you don't show emotions and you're a blank slate. They shouldn't know anything about you. And I'm like, you have a wedding ring on, they know you're married. You don't have one on, they think, well, either you never got married or you got divorced. No matter what you do, people make a story up about you. So why not share it never share something that's a problem. No, I would never do that because it's their space, not mine. This is not a time for anything that is my problem. But yeah, do I have kids? Yeah. Did I live in Tasmania, for example? Yeah. Big deal. It's just genuine human interaction. But we're taught. There are psychologists who would say, they shouldn't know anything about you. No, that doesn't work for me. And I'm lucky enough because I'm in private practice that if that doesn't suit a particular client, then don't come see me. I'm not the right person for you.
Yeah.
We're very mindful that there is a problem if you tear up when a client tells you their story. They might worry that you're not strong enough for them and they're hurting you, so they might clam up.
Yeah.
So it isn't a good idea to tear up when a client tells you their story. But try telling my emotions that.
I know, but that's our natural empathy. It's like,
well, I just say to my clients, just now I've learned to say to my clients over the years, what you're telling me really moves me. And I'm tuned into your experience here.
Yes.
Not that I don't think my client has ever thought that I can't hear it then because it's too much. It's just your experience really, really touches me.
Yeah.
And then you go back to, when I was trained 20 years ago, of course, autistics are not empathic.
Yeah, but the problem is this is still going around, Yael.
Yeah.
People still believe this stuff. It's not 20 years ago. It's still here. We're like battling these myths every single day,
I took one of my daughters who's ADHD, I took her to the doctor this last week, and she's sitting there. We were there 3 minutes, 3, 4, maybe. And he saw on her files ADHD. It's a new doctor, it's not ours. And she's sitting there, very anxious girl. And she's sitting there and he looks over her and he goes to me, "You sure? She's very chilled." I'm like, oh my God. Seriously? You saw her for 3 minutes and she's not jumping on your desk. So you think, well, she can't have ADHD. And this is a young doctor. So there are still plenty of people out there who are dinosaurs, even though they're young.
Yeah, but the problem is, sure, the training, sure, this is something we've talked about before. It's like, well, if you don't ask people with ADHD or ADHDers, or you don't ask autistics, and they're not involved in the process of training, then all you have is this person who thinks this is what it is, telling this person that this is what it is, and then they tell someone else this is what it is. And it's just this circle going around of people who just talking about what they think it is, and no one's actually asking the autistic person over here, or whatever minority, is this actually true?
Exactly.
True. And then we're like, no, actually most of it's not.
I want to make 2 more points that I just really would like to share from my learnings. One is that I do say to my teenagers, specifically my teenagers, because I really hope to be a good role model to them. I really hope that they can look at me and go, she's autistic and she's done really well. She has a great career, good job, she's happy. But at the same time, I don't want them to feel less than because they can't cope with something. So what I say to them is, in this room with you, I'm highly able. I am in my zone, in my element. There are other situations in the world, in my life, where I'm quite disabled because the situation isn't set up for me.
Yeah.
So, when I worked in an organization where there was so much rank and hierarchy, and where you just had to do as you were told, whether you thought it was fair or kind or whatever or not, or logical, no, I actually didn't function well, and it didn't work.
I wouldn't.
So I think it's important that I hold both the struggle and the ability.
Yeah.
And then so there was that, and the other point that I really wanted to pop in there has probably gone. No, I know. And that was, I just had this moment when I was doing my master's and we had to do a questionnaire as part of learning how to do assessments. So we did them on ourselves first. And it's the NEO-PIR, which is a 5-factor personality questionnaire. And you get these 5 scores on your personality, areas of personality: neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and C is either competency, conscientiousness. I scored rock bottom, like not even on the graph, for conscientiousness.
Really?
Meaning I saw myself as a total failure, as disorganized, as incompetent in my studies. May I add that I was on my 4th degree and they were all distinctions and high distinctions plus. But when you're struggling in the world because everyone makes you feel like you're not right, that's what you take on about yourself.
Yep. No matter
and I
what
remember that the lecturer looked at it, my tutor looked at it and went, what have you scored yourself?
Yeah.
Whereas on openness, which is openness to other people and diversity and acceptance and respect, I scored off the charts up.
Yeah.
And now that I know about autism, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. No, but we are very hard on ourselves, Yael. And I think that is, you know, no matter what you do, you feel like it's not enough. Well, you're kind of made feel that way when you're growing up. I think it's like
Totally.
you're never good enough, you're never right. And then you kind of end up having this really hard view of yourself and giving yourself a really hard time, and everything has to be perfect. You know what I mean? And you know, you'd probably be on, oh, I need to do another degree. And then it's I think for me, it was like, if I do this, I'll get into this group. If I do this, I'll finally get into this group. And realizing I was autistic and learning what actually being autistic is just led me to go, I don't care about that group.
What a relief.
It doesn't even exist. It's just this thing I had created in my head really over all these years. I'm like, it doesn't exist. Most people are just getting on with their own lives. They don't really care what you're doing. People you met 20 years ago aren't checking to see what you're doing now. It's just like, you know what? Just go live your own life. And like, there's such freedom in that. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is, we could chat for another hour, I'd imagine. I know we've had like long conversations, which is quite typical for us. We're gonna have a quick chat and it's like 3 hours later. But before we go, if you had like one message, say for, well, I think your passion is for teenagers at the moment, is it? Or maybe autistic women or someone, let's say anybody who is just maybe thinking they're autistic or, you know, starting that process. What would be kind of one learning that you have or one piece of advice or maybe something you could offer? I know it's hard. It doesn't have to be one thing. You can give us 3.
I think for teenagers, I want to say, make sure that you find someone who really is involved in the autistic world.
Yeah.
Who's going to assess you, not someone who's just been trained by mainstream university or what have you. You need to go to someone who is listening to autistic adults.
Yeah.
And they don't, there are certain words that if they don't know, I'm sorry, they haven't been listening. They're not there. Because you're just going to get invalidated again when you go and see somebody else and told how to mask even more and how to try something even harder, as if you haven't been trying hard enough.
Yeah, that's really important.
That would be a biggie. And I guess my other one would be to women of my own age who say, you know, should I get a diagnosis? My wish at the moment would be, no, we don't need a diagnosis, but if you can develop and firm up your identification, it is so freeing. It is so wonderful to know who you are. Diagnosis is a privilege, you know, it cost me a lot of money. It cost me a lot of money and it is a privilege, and you run the risk of not going to the right person anyway, so not getting diagnosed and then invalidating yourself.
Yes, this is the thing.
Put it this way, you've lived 50 years or whatever years masking well enough, so obviously you're pretty well masked. So you really need to find someone who understands nuance and understands masking and understands all these much more subtle, almost adapted ways of being autistic, and to see into them. Yeah,
that is really good advice. The last thing you want to do is go somewhere and be re-traumatized by the process. If somebody is a psychologist, the group you run on Facebook, is it just for Australian psychologists or is it just Australian? That's fine. So if someone is Australian and they're a psychologist, how do we find
at the moment, and this is a bit of an indictment on us, sister, at the moment I've made it unsearchable because there was someone making us feel unsafe.
Oh, okay. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah. Isn't that terrible though? Isn't that terrible? Why should we feel unsafe? There is, however, there are some really great Facebook groups for therapists that are more open, that are American on this one. They're much more open and ahead of us. The lived experience thing, they're good with it. Maybe they have some issues, but I think they're better than us. And so there's neurodiversity affirming, what do they call themselves? Neurodiversity affirming therapists, I think it's called. And so any mental health professional could be on that Facebook group, and it's a good one.
Good.
And there's one for speech and language therapists and OTs, which is called the Neurodiversity Collective, I think.
Yeah.
And on the Facebook group, anyone can be on it, but in their actual group, it's only speechies and OTs.
Yeah.
Even though I've asked them to include psychs, but they won't. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
okay. So it's good to know that if someone is, you know what I mean, if they're hearing what you're, you know, saying, and it's ringing true for them and they're professional, well, it's like, well, you know, where do they go for a bit more information as well? I hope you get
message me.
They can message you as well. Email is probably the best way. So give us your email.
Look, I mean, my Facebook, Yeal Clarke, it's open. It's a public account, but it's not personal. If anybody wants to contact me, you know, particularly Australians, because I do think each place has its own context.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on. Its own reporting bodies, its own code of ethics.
Yeah.
Its own politics.
Yeah. Oh, politics.
Nice.
Don't you love it? Brilliant. Well, Yael, listen, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you as always. And I hope you're going to get these blogs out soon. I'm really looking forward to reading them.
Oops. I write a lot, just don't publish it. Okay.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks,
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's my off?